Jackson Show podcast. We're going to be talking about what I'm labeling Biden-topia. Well, what is Biden-topia? Okay, so small business owners are struggling to rehire workers because of the unprecedented pandemic welfare paychecks. This is a strategy by the left. They have used this. They have used the lockdowns, not the virus. They have used the lockdowns in order to start brainwashing, if you will, middle class America. They want to. The left wants to. The left doesn't necessarily have to worry about getting the votes of the poor. They've made the poor, sadly, many people that are in the lower income bracket dependent upon government subsidies, government welfare, however you want to put it. The rich, they go around, they pal around with the elite in Washington, D.C. You can see all of these leftists that are exposing themselves and all of these major Fortune 500 corporations. But the little problem, the little thorn in the side of the Democrat Party has always been the quote unquote middle class. Or I don't like the class system, but it's obvious that we're fighting a class system type battle right here in America. But I always refer to the middle class, or I had in the past, as the transitional class. And the reason why I say that is because you can go from the middle class to poor pretty quickly. You can go from middle class to upper middle class to rich, with just working hard, investing your money, saving your money. And then the left understands that. They get that. So the more that people understand their money and how money works and how money can work for them, the less likely these people are going to vote for Democrat policies. The left knows this. What they want to do is feed us a little bit of drugs, right? A little bit of welfare here, a little bit of welfare a little bit of welfare here and there, and say, "Ooh, that actually feels pretty good. That's not as bad as I thought." We have to always come back to the fact that the government does not create anything. The government doesn't produce anything except in our military. For all of you lefties that'll come at me, of course, the military, that is constitutional. But the federal government only has what they take from us. So whenever the federal government, I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican, but it is a Democrat in this case, in the White House, the resident in the White House, whenever they use the term invest, red bells, red alerts should start, to start flashing in your mind, so to speak, because the left wants to take us to a system of welfare. When they say invest, they mean I'm going to take money from you because that's the only way they can have money, or they can print it. And if they print money, which we're doing hands over fist, it weakens the dollar. So a dollar bill is no longer worth a dollar bill. Right now, I'm not sure exactly what a dollar is worth, but we're seeing inflation. We're seeing inflation when it comes to the gas tank, when it comes to the cost of or the pricing of used vehicles. It is amazing what we're seeing in inflation. People aren't necessarily paying attention to. When you go to the grocery store, you're paying more for. So all of this stuff is weakening the dollar. Stuff is getting a lot more expensive. Where I live in Orlando, Florida, I was speaking to a gentleman that's in the construction business the other day, and he was telling me how they had to halt construction on apartment complexes because lumber has gone up 3 times the amount, and it's much harder to come by. And so now they're no longer on budget. They had to halt the projects. I mean, this is absolutely astonishing. But what we're seeing is, and what I want to talk about is these small business owners that are really struggling. I'm looking for a pen here. That are really struggling to find workers. This is very dangerous. This is strategic. I love former President Trump and possibly future President Trump. But the biggest mistake he made, and I believe he would admit to this, is that we should have never locked down. It's one of the biggest mistakes ever. We had fascist Fauci who could care less about the suffering when it comes to the spiritual, mental, and financial suffering of everyday Americans. This is a man, as Dennis Prager often says, that's pretty much, I mean, he's smart at what he does, I guess, but he's incapable of thinking outside of the box when it isn't in his area of expertise, which makes him, this is exactly why you don't want to rely on people that have a singular focus when it comes to their expertise. We've given these bureaucrats way too much, these unelected bureaucrats, way too much power in Washington, D.C. Here's what's going to happen before I get into some of these details here. If you think typical Republicans and just electing Republicans in the office in 2022 is going to turn all of this around, you have another thing coming. You are going to have to find people of courage that happen to love the Constitution, that don't necessarily want to go to Washington, but are willing to go to Washington and take arrows because you think things are bad now, the way people are being doxxed and mistreated. And look at what happened to Senator Tim Scott, Uncle Tim, this week for he was called for saying that America isn't a racist country. And anyone with a modicum of common sense understands what he was saying. Of course, there's always going to be racist people, but the country as a whole is not racist. We know that. We've made incredible strides since Reconstruction, since the Civil Rights era. We've made incredible strides. So anybody with a modicum of common sense, and that isn't a partisan hack, knows what he's talking about. But the left wants to divide us. And so if you elect a Republican or conservative, a constitutionalist to office, these are people that are going to have to be willing to go in and rip off the Band-Aid when it comes to this welfare. Because if that doesn't happen, I don't think we'll ever see America as it was before. Not only are we going to have to take the fight politically, but our churches. I mean, I battle with people on Facebook every day that are Christians, good-hearted Christians with good intentions, but are absolutely and completely clueless when it comes to what the left is trying to do. So this is stuff that we're going to have to be aware of when it comes to our faith communities, when it comes to the political arena, when it just comes to family and friends. We have to start talking about and having these conversations about liberty and freedom. Let's get to the topic at hand, because I get some really scary and troubling numbers, and I hope this motivates you to get on the ball when it comes to the fight for freedom. First off, let me just give you a headline from Zero Hedge, if I could scroll down on my phone fast enough to point this out. A record 34% of all household income in the U.S. now comes from the government. Okay, you didn't hear me. Let me say that one more again. A record 34% of all household income in the U.S. now comes from the government. We've always had an issue, because some people may conflate this. We've always had an issue where conservatives have argued, I've argued, if we cross the 50% threshold of people that are getting some type of dole from the government, America is in trouble. I believe we crossed that threshold. And if I'm not mistaken, it was either under Bush or Obama. Bush didn't help matters in that regard. Expanding Medicare and Medicaid and all of this type of stuff, which, sounds great initially, but then you realize how much it's destroying the economy and how much, if people were allowed to buy, insurances across state lines, whatever, I don't want to get into. Anyway, but don't conflate the issues. So there's 50% of people that are on the government dole, and somehow lower income people on the government dole, some way, shape, or form. Or don't have to pay into the federal tax system. They pay payroll taxes. They don't necessarily pay federal income tax. We crossed that threshold. So America's already in a dangerous place. But now you're talking about Americans as a whole. So 34% of Americans that are now getting government cheese. And you might think, wait a minute, Republicans, conservatives will never fall for this. Au contraire, mon frère. Let's get into the numbers. So if that headline didn't scare you, let's start going through the numbers. This was an article from justthenews.com. So it says restaurants, but I'm saying small businesses struggle to rehire workers due to the unprecedented amount of pandemic jobless payments. So the article starts off by saying, as states begin to ease indoor dining restrictions, the food service industry is having a hard time hiring employees. A difficulty owners blame in part on the disincentivizing effects of supercharged federal unemployment benefits, which are paid to individuals on on top of their state benefits. So who benefits from this? Who benefits from workers being disincentivized to collect government welfare checks instead of going to work to earn an honest and decent living? Who benefits from this, politically speaking? We all know it. We all know that the Democrat Party benefits from this. Now, when I say Democrat Party, there's a lot of laymen that may be watching or see me on Facebook opining or what have you. I don't necessarily mean you. But if you don't get it, if you don't understand what your leaders in the Democrat Party are doing, you are part of the problem, because their goal is to make people miserable. Or I shouldn't even say miserable, not necessarily miserable. It's just to feed them enough dopamine, give them just to subdue us. Oh, okay, this feels pretty good. We can live like the people in Europe or France. You know, we don't have to work all these hours. We can sit on our, butts and or whatever for a good portion of the week and just enjoy life. You know, a check is just going to come to us. That's what the left wants to do. The article goes on to say the federal benefit that Congress created in response to the coronavirus pandemic was $600 per week, which amounted, ironically, to, guess what? $15 per hour. Why is that number important? That number is important because we've seen the left push this $15 minimum wage hike. Biden has announced that he's increasing the pay of federal employees, the minimum pay, to $15 an hour. Why not? Why not? He didn't make the money. He can print the money. But you know who's going to pay for it? It's not going to be Biden, who's corrupt as all get out and making cash money on the side with his corrupt crackhead son. It's not going to be him. It's going to be us. It's going to be us. We're going to pay for it at the grocery store, as I mentioned earlier, in higher costs. We're going to pay for it when it comes to higher prices, filling up our fuel tanks and so on, et cetera. We're going to pay for it when it comes to housing and rent. We're going to pay the price. The problem is we don't have enough people whose eyes are open to see that now. But hopefully when you're watching shows like this, that'll happen. So make sure you tell people about this podcast, by the way, and my show. Just go to carljacksonshow.com. Check out our show times. And after today, you'll be able to find this podcast on many more venues. So we look forward to that. So you'll be able to find us wherever podcasts are found. All right. So having said that, so you got this $15 an hour minimum wage benefit package, basically, that the left has installed initially under Trump. Mind you, again, I say this was the biggest mistake that Trump made during his presidency. He had a good heart. The left took advantage of that. Now they're stealing credit for the jobs being regained that were lost. They're taking credit for the vaccines. It's been an entire mess. But the goal for the left, you have to remember this. The goal for the Democrat Party is they need to keep you poor. It's really as simple as that. Republicans do well when you do well. You have to remember that. Republicans do well when you do well. Democrats do well, and this is going to sound kind of funny, but it's true, when you do poorly. That's when they're empowered, when you do poorly. Do you wonder why? I mean, look at how loyal the Black community is to the Democrat Party. Yet, for nearly 60 years now, the same political arguments have been taking place within the Black community, within the Democrat Party, because they have no intentions of making anything better. Their goal, in order for them to stay in power, they hate America. They hate the American dream, except they really don't hate the American dream. They love the benefits of the American dream, but they like to be able to say, hey, they hate America so they can steal power from you. But Democrats are successful that's a good way to put it. Democrats are successful when you are unsuccessful. So you have to keep that in mind. This article goes on to say the number of workers eligible for jobless benefits expanded during the pandemic. And this is what is really scary. For the first time under this Biden administration, self-employed workers are also able to collect unemployment benefits. Why is that crucial? Why is that important? Listen, I'm self-employed. If you can get, as I was speaking of earlier, if you can get the middle class, the people like me who are like, listen, I want this American dream. I'm fighting for this American dream. I'm working my butt off. I'm paying off debt. I'm saving. I'm investing because I want to be in the top tier of money makers in the United States of America. There's no shame in my game. If I am, I'm going to help plenty of people out. I'm going to tithe, so on, etc. That is my heart. I have no shame in my game when it comes to wanting to make money, as long as the money doesn't rule you, right? Which admittedly, at times I can struggle with. So, but you got to pray. You got to pray against that. But my goal is to be able to help out family members, friends, our church, and live an overall better lifestyle for myself and my family. I have no problem with saying that. That is a part of the American dream. But it scares me because now they're targeting those that are self-employed, and maybe there's small business owners like restaurant owners. I think those people like me, we just have this innate quality in us where we don't want to be on the dole. We want to work hard and we want to succeed. So I don't think it'll necessarily work, but the left is attempting it. They're trying it. And they're like, if we can get enough of these people to cave, to give in, to see, hey, you know what? Instead of fighting for that American dream, just relax. Just relax. We'll take care of you. I mean, that's scary because ultimately what you'll have is just the ruling class and the lower income dependency class. And that's exactly what the left wants. That is a scary option. You have the House Majority Leader, Steny Hoyer, said recently that the $600 weekly supplement job loss benefits were very, very hard for any employer to replicate. You have a Democrat admitting, because of the lockdowns, I want to take this back. We're not in the predicament that we're in because of COVID. I mean, listen, I'm sorry if you're still buying into the COVID lockdown nonsense. The world is on fire. We're all going to die if we walk out the door and don't wear a mask. Then I would just say, frankly, you've been duped. These people have a plan. Steny Hoyer essentially admits it. It's going to be very, very hard, he said, for any employer to replicate these government benefits. Again, I say Trump's biggest mistake was shutting down the economy. His heart was too big. I understand what he was trying to do, but this is just something you never do. You never do. But that proves that he wasn't a tyrant. That proves that he wasn't some evil man, that he didn't have any compassion like the left constantly said. This was a guy that said, okay, I'm going to shut down the economy in order to save Americans, in order to save American lives. The left jumps in, Democrats jump in and say, let's use this as a tool to alter the way people vote, so on, etc. Let's keep people on the dole. They're going to keep this going. The left wants to keep this going as long as possible. If they can keep this COVID pandemic fear and scare like Fauci is doing, like Biden is constantly doing, this moron that has a vaccine, God forgive me, but this resident in the White House that is fully vaccinated, his staff fully vaccinated, the VP fully vaccinated, yet they continue to wear masks, and all to continue to stoke that fear. They want to keep this thing going as long as possible because they need to crush the middle class. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. When Trump initially shut down the economy, and then you saw these blue state governors just run with it and keep these, implement all these emergency orders in their states, their cities, local municipalities all over the place, particularly in blue areas. I mean, they figured they had the election won because they could implement anything. So initially under Trump, there were $600 payments installed. That ended as of July 31st. And then Trump signed an executive order reinstating those federal jobless benefits to $400 an hour. Later, Trump signed into law a $900 billion stimulus package. But if you recall, that lowered the payments to $300 a week. Now, why is this important? You got people getting free money, so to speak, that they're actually paying for in inflation and taxes along the way in the future. But why is that important? Because what President Trump was trying to do was slowly wean people off of the government dole so that they could go back to work. Because even though you shut down the economy, so to speak, you don't want to shut down the American dream. You don't want to shut down American dignity. You don't want to shut down the American work ethic, right? You don't want any of that to shut down. You want people to go back to work. You want the economy booming again. You want people dreaming and wanting their lives better. You want all that, not the Democrats. Not the Democrats. So President Biden's I say president only because I read Biden's America Rescue Plan originally called for $400. He's kept it at $300, but you have states that are kicking in where people are making so much money now to stay home. It's getting it's just getting ridiculous. Let me give you some examples. There's Eric Terry. He's the president of the Virginia Restaurant Lodging and Travel Association, appointed to the unprecedented amount of welfare checks and jobless payments as the reason for a shortage in the food industry employees. And obviously that's true. Here's another example. Oceanfront restaurants in Virginia Beach are reportedly not able to hire enough workers ahead of the busy summer season. You would expect college students, maybe some high school students, maybe just some adults that wanted to make some extra cash over this busy summer season in areas like this to go ahead and, they want to collect those tips. They want to make more money, put some money away, pay off some debt, whatever it may be. It's just not happening. Another guy, this is George Coterides, he owns 3 locations of Doughboy's Pizza Shop. He said the lack of labor is simply a problem. A chef in Boston said this: restaurants need more workers to survive. Now, this is going to take me back to the middle class. This is going to take me back to those people that are self-employed. This is a very short but important statement. Restaurants need more workers to survive. This is a very important point. If workers give up on their dreams, the left is banking, Democrats are banking on those people, those entrepreneurs, those small business owners giving up on their dreams. Eventually, small business, in order for small businesses to grow, in order for small business owners to become successful, what has to happen? They have to duplicate their business themselves through employees. So if those employees are like, screw it, eventually business owners may have a breaking point. And that's exactly what the left wants to do. They want to crush the American spirit in people. They want to crush American independence in people. And that's their goal. That is their aim. This chef goes on to say, if you're getting, and I'm quoting him, if you're getting $750 a week from the state plus $300 from the federal government, imagine that. In welfare, $300 from the government, $750 from the state. You can budget your life accordingly. Maybe you're making more or less or about equal pay, but your life is less stressful, right? You don't have to go in. A check just comes in the mail. I can pay my bills. I may not be able to travel to Timbuktu, but who can? People are locking down. Even red state Alabama is having the same issue. Red state Alabama. Do you understand how dangerous this is? Do you understand what the left is trying to do? If they can convince typical or traditional valued Americans, traditional Republicans, constitutionalists to cave to this, they've won. They've won. In this sense, when it comes to welfare, Those of us on the right, those of us that are liberty minded, cannot fall in love with the almighty dollar. I'm not willing to give up my liberty. I do not want to be Venezuela. This is not going to end well if we continue down this road. I don't know if you guys have seen, we don't talk about it much. I don't know if you guys go, I encourage you to Google what's happening in Venezuela, where people are literally lining up areas where there's trash and debris, searching for food, searching for animals to eat. Venezuela, go to PragerU and watch these videos. Venezuela, which should have the should be completely prosperous, and it was at one point. The resources that they have, natural resources in Venezuela, is unbelievable. But you have these dictators like Maduro that come in, squash the people, squash their dreams, and just destroy life. And that's eventually, we've been so spoiled in America, it's hard for us to understand. I mean, that's why you have all this Black Lives Matter nonsense and all that kind of stuff too. We have it so good in America that we have to recreate or invent grievances in order to feel like we have purpose, where our purpose should be, okay, God, you have put me in America for a reason. What should I be doing as a result of being an American? I'm blessed. So I should be making money maybe to give to missionaries, helping out my own family, helping out charitable causes, so on, etc. And again, not to the neglect of your own family, but you were allowed to live in America for a reason. You shouldn't feel guilty about that. And New York is the same thing, but we expect it there. There's desperation setting in where business owners are willing to pay bonuses. They're having problems in Ohio. I want you to hear this quote from Steny Hoyer again. He says here, theoretically, if they okay, all right. Well, let me set this up. So theoretically, here's what's supposed to happen. Here's what's not happening. The left is clever. They know what they're doing, but I want you to get what they're doing. So theoretically, what's supposed to happen, and we can all remember this, all right? So you lose your job. You're laid off, not because of COVID, initially because of COVID, but now because of the lockdowns, right? And these stringent executive orders that leftists are pulling off everywhere or implementing everywhere. All right, so you're laid off initially. Okay, but once you have the opportunity to come back to work, you're supposed to report that to the federal government, state government, and then you no longer get your welfare checks. You no longer get your dopamine because now you get to go back to work. People simply aren't reporting it. So if the worker was laid off, but he was offered a job, he's supposed to report, or he or she, they're supposed to report that, and then they lose their welfare check. It's not being enforced. It's simply not being enforced. People are literally going out now and just filling out applications and not even showing up. They're not showing up for interviews. This is getting really bad. And the longer this goes on, it's only going to get worse. Republicans that when elected office in 2022 cannot be pansies. Your typical establishment Republicans aren't going to do it. Your libertarians that always fall for socialist type liberal, hey, America, let's live whatever lifestyle you want, which always ends up, you tell a man and woman be promiscuous or whatever as they want, and then you got, children in the future on welfare. That's why libertarianism, I never buy into it. It all sounds good, but because all they think about is financial liberty, but there's no thought when it comes to spiritual liberty, mental liberty, so on, etc. So I just never bought into libertarianism. I just can't go there. It sounds smart until you really think it out. All it does is create more welfare recipients in the long run when everybody could do whatever they want. Doing whatever you want isn't liberty, as great as that sounds. It's just not. But we are in a dangerous position. We're in a dangerous position. And, I want to come on here and I want to sound jovial. I've been saying this. I want to sound jovial, but I also want to just give you the truth so you know what we have to fight for. Do not let these people destroy the American dream. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. The Daily Caller wrote a column, What's in Biden's $1.8 trillion American Families Plan? Some of you may have watched. I watched maybe about 10 minutes or so, and I just couldn't take it anymore. But this guy wants to give. I mean, you're talking about welfare from cradle to grave, pre-K for everybody, free college, you name it. It's not free. The government does not have the money unless they print it or unless they take it from you. Here's what the government does. I want you to play this trick in your own head. You have $5 in your back pocket. Biden comes up and says, I want to give you $5 to help you get some food or some gas or whatever today. That's a really low amount. Let's say $20. So you got a $20 bill in your pocket. I want to get some food. I want to get some gas today, whatever. Biden comes up to you and says, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to give you that that $20. And then he says, turn around. No, not for that reason. But he says, turn around. And he takes the $20 out of your pocket. And he says, here you go. And you're like, dude, that was my 20. I already had it. Yeah, that's exactly what the government does. All they do is take what's already yours and then they say, thank me. No, that's not what we should do. This guy wants to re-raise, Biden, that is. He wants to re-raise the highest income tax bracket and tax just means take. So he wants to take from people, take from corporations back up to 39.6%. A lot of these liberal fools are getting on my nerves. So sometimes I'm like, okay, maybe these major corporations that are just straight up lefty and anti-American and helping out China while kicking American workers in the teeth. I can't lie. I'm starting to struggle with that. I'm like, maybe we should tax them at 90%. But that wouldn't make sense, right? Because no one would be incentivized to build business. But again, they want to take from people that make over $1 million. They want to take 40%. That's the federal government. That's not state. That's not local. That's not property tax. So these people can pay 60, 70%, of their income. Oh, so what, Carl? They can afford it. Well, who are you to morally make that judgment and say that things that people work for, you get to have? It's all relative. You may make 50,000, you may make 40,000, you may make 100,000. Your neighbor may not make more as much as you. Your neighbor may look at you and say, man, I wish I had what he had. Or I wish I had what she had. Why don't you go ahead and give it to them? It's all relative. But these leftists know they can play these games to divide us. So we have to be careful of what's going on. But right now, my biggest fear and what we're going to have to tackle if we win in 2022, conservatives, we're going to have to put people in government that are straight up fighters. And I'll say this real quick. I got to say this about Senator Tim Scott. I like Senator Tim Scott. I like Nikki Haley. A lot of people are talking about them as, possible presidential runners. No. Not for this season. When you're in a good season, things aren't so bad. When the left aren't pressing the boot of communism on our necks. But what we're going to go through for the next several years is not going to be pretty. It isn't. Nobody wants to talk about it, but it isn't going to be pretty. It just isn't. In order for us to turn America around, I challenge it's going to take some fighters. Just think about this. I challenge you in this way. Name one government program that has been implemented that Republicans have fought to remove. I heard this guy from American Enterprise Institute make a brilliant point. Now, I'll close it out here in a few. But he said the problem with conservatives, and he didn't sound like he was a conservative, but he made an excellent point. The problem with conservatives over the years is Democrats have offered a plan like Obamacare, and then conservatives say, oh, we offer this conservative version. No, there is no conservative version of big government. So when you have Republicans, constitutional, whatever, talking about just making tweaks here and there, they're not going to fight for you. The country will be destroyed. I mean, if we go to hell, and then what am I trying to say here? Basically, if America America can go to hell quickly, or which seems we are right now, or America could go to hell slowly. But the bottom line is we're still going to hell. So you need people, you need people in office that says, you know what, I don't want to slide into hell. So I'm going to be willing to fight the demons. I'm going to be willing to fight the naysayers. I'm going to be willing to be disliked. And I've made up my mind to be one of those people. I come off on Facebook. Sometimes I could come off rough and aggressive, but I do that because I love people. I don't want to see what the Democrat Party wants to do. And I know there's a lot of well-intentioned people that don't even get it. Smart, they have degrees, so on, et cetera. But they just can't fathom that people in their party would want to destroy fellow Americans. But they do, because that's the only way they'll stay in power. So we have to be mindful of this. We have to be aware. We can't hire anymore. We can't hire soft people to go to Washington anymore. Those days are over. Some of you may not like Marjorie Taylor Greene's. Those are the type of people that are going to have to go there. People that say, listen, I have a life outside of Washington. I can survive outside of Washington. But while I'm here, I'm gonna sit here and fight. It's as simple as that. Representative Matt Gaetz, I know he's going through his struggles right now. The Ron DeSantis's of the world, the Jim Jordans of the world. Hopefully, Kimberly Klacik. There's a Joe Collins in Los Angeles, right here in Orlando. Willie Montague. You're gonna have to send people to Washington that are going to be willing to be disliked. It's as simple as that. Otherwise, America is not going to come back. But watch. You guys were mentioning J-Dog and Dennis in studio. Sorry, I didn't mention that earlier. But just how many people, how many businesses you see right now hiring, because they can't incentivize people to go back to work. Imagine the effects this is going to have on our younger generation. Not necessarily just the millennial generation, but young kids who were growing up and seeing this. Mom and dad, or mom or dad at home all the time. These people are killing us. All right. So anyway, this is Biden-topia. Biden-topia essentially is to destroy the middle class. And we're already seeing it take effect. Guys, when we elect people to go to Washington, it's got to be people that are willing to rip off the Band-Aid, or we won't survive. You're going to have to be those people to be as loving and kind as possible to friends and family, but be willing to speak the truth. We cannot back down. Not on Facebook, not in person, not in our churches. We cannot back down. All right. Unless there's any questions, comments, or concerns, I'm going to close this thing out. So do we have anything?
Yeah, we have a pretty active chat today, so let me jump in and read some of the comments. When you said that you were getting ready to close, I thought I had about, 10 to 12 more minutes to go, because I thought you were doing the preacher thing, when the preacher says in closing.
Okay.
You still have like 10 to 12 minutes of service. Don't start packing your stuff up. We're going to start with Peter Deacon, who says, first taste is free, then the dependency begins.
First taste is free?
Yeah, the first taste is free, and then the dependency begins.
Yeah, the dependency begins, and unfortunately, I don't even believe that the first taste is free. These people have got us hook, line, and sinker, and as soon as there's always going to be enough people that'll get a taste, to use your word, of dependency where they'll never want to go back. The left is relying on that, and God forbid, we have to fight like heck. We gotta explain to people basic civics. I'm starting to see people fighting in local municipalities, trying to implement civics, fighting back against critical race theory. Whole different topic. I get it, but nonetheless, this is how they're trying to destroy us. They can implement all these distracting things like critical race theory and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, they're trying to destroy the middle class. They're trying to destroy job opportunity, growth opportunity, the ability to work, that American spirit and independence. I'm gonna work hard. I'm work hard. I'm gonna play hard. I'm gonna build a business. I'm gonna dream. I want to become an entrepreneur. I want to work for a good company. I want to, whatever it may be, they're trying to destroy that. And we just can't let them do it. Anything else?
Yeah, 3 more, because the chat was pretty active today. So want to say thank you to the people who took the time out to share some messages with us.
Thank you. Appreciate you chiming in this Saturday morning.
Gilda shares this story. My friend is an office manager. She has an employee that has always wanted to work the day shift in a full-time position. She offered it to him, but he turned it down because he can make more money for working part-time and getting government benefits.
Oh, Gilda, and you know what scares me about that is he wanted this position at first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now there's no need. There's no need. So imagine, look at what this has done to the American psyche in a year. Democrats are going to keep this going as long as they can ride this wave. They're going to ride this wave. They're not going to get hurt. Look at Joe Biden. Look at all these people in Washington, D.C. that do insider trading. Look at I'll get into this. This is a topic for another day. But this whole green global warming, man-made global warming hoax is the earth warming. Yes, but it's cyclical. It's a very tiny amount. Actually, it's cooling. We're in a cooling phase right now. What am I saying? But has it warmed? Yeah, but we're in a cooling phase. You won't hear this. Electrical cars, electrical vehicles, are they? Whatever the left can do to control us, whatever the left can do, as the first person said, just to give us a taste of this welfare dopamine or whatever it may be. I mean, they're going to do this. We are honestly, I hate to say it sounds so dire, but we are in a dire state of affairs in America. I never, as Dennis Prager says, basically, I never expected that so many Americans could be brainwashed. I never expected that so many Americans could fall for what the left is doing. And I was completely wrong. And so I fight even harder. I yell a little louder. I feel like I don't joke as much because I care about people and I care about this country. And I don't want to see it go to hell. I think one of the benefits of America is, I remember praying and asking God a long time ago, God, why did you give me this passion for politics? Why does it matter inside of America? I just don't get it, Lord. And I remember one time, and it wasn't audibly, but I was listening to the ACLJ, and I was like, why are these people even useful? The American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow, they were fighting court battles to help Christians or fight for Christians in the court system, which is why one of the reasons politics became so important to me, because I would listen to some of these cases on the ride home when I worked really weird times. And I was like, I didn't realize Christians were so persecuted in America, at least through the court system. But I felt like God was like, all I'm doing is I'm using people like Jay Sekulow to buy time because I want more people ushered into my kingdom. So even though that's a spiritual thought, there's a practical element taking place. And that's why politics became so important to me. I was like, yeah, Americans are free. We can use our money to send people to missionary fields. We can use our money to bless others, bless ourselves, bless our families. So it's something we have to fight for liberty. We have to fight for freedom.
All right, let's move on to Barbara, a good friend of the show.
Hey, Barbara.
She wrote in and said, we need liberty-minded governors, state legislatures, and We the People Coalition, maybe even separate from welfare states. We are no longer United States.
Yeah, we definitely are. Definitely are not. And yes, good observation. We do need liberty-minded people in local and state governments. Thank you for mentioning that. That's absolutely true. Here's what we have to be willing to do. We have to pay attention, and we have to be willing to kick politicians to the curb in our own party if they're not willing to take the arrows. We need statesmen in office that can explain what we're doing. But we need fighters. And that's why I appreciate people like Ted Cruz. That's why I appreciate Ron DeSantis. I think he even does a better job of explaining policy than Trump, but he has that Trump fight in him. And we need more politicians like that, frankly. All right.
Oh, I had a previous that was gonna close us out, but I have to go to this comment to close us out because we're talking about fighting. Gilda says keep yelling, giving you advice to keep yelling, Carl. And then Barbara comes in. Yeah, Carl's good when he starts yelling.
Well, I appreciate it, Gilda. I love you. I know who Gilda is, obviously, and then Barbara. Yeah, I will keep yelling. I will keep fighting. I've just decided that even if it means being disliked on this side of eternity, what's important to me is for God to say, well done, good and faithful servant, even if it means being disliked by Christians, because I got to be honest with you, I've been so disappointed at the Christian evangelical church as a whole. It's been really disheartening. But if it means that I'm hated so others can be blessed, I've decided that's the way it's going to be. So.
You still need to put some time into the Chris Hart school of yelling on radio because you don't have that vein right there in your forehead that pops up.
You know what's funny is Chris Hart is a friend of ours on local radio here. Yeah, you know what's funny is I'm like, okay, I have been getting so frustrated lately of what the left is doing and how weak Republicans have been, how weak the Christian evangelical church has been when it comes to this fight for freedom. That I've just been so frustrated, but I'm like, I have to make it more palatable in the future sometimes where, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. So I do want to get back to having some fun on radio and stuff like that. And just persuading people. That's going to be my goal going forward. I'm going to take on big issues. I'm going to talk about issues like the issue that we have with rehiring workers. That is a big deal. It's a headline there's 1,000 headlines to read nowadays, right? The left is doing this, the left is doing this. There's the media wants to distract us by a black person shot by a cop that, listen, those situations should be investigated. But I still know the facts that more white people are shot and killed by cops every year. It's been that way for a very long time. But the media gets away with that stuff, and they want to distract us from the things that are going to hurt us in the long run because they constantly want to build this narrative that America is systemically racist, and it's just crazy. But I want to talk about the big issues. I want to start persuading people over to the big issues and to keep their eyes on the prize. Electric vehicles, that's another dangerous thing. I know people love them. I can't stand them, but I get that people love them, and I don't mind that people love them. Absolutely fine with me, free America, but not when you're trying to purposely destroy the rest of America. We'll get into that topic within the next week or two, but I really want to dive into electric vehicles because the Biden administration, and you have the great poupon John Kerry pushing this man-made global warming nonsense religiously. It's become a religion. It really has. But the fact of the matter is there will be no impact on the environment to make it better by going with electric vehicles. As a matter of fact, I'll make the case that it's worse for the environment. So sounds good. You feel good. You get to pat yourself on the back when you drive those cars. You get to go faster if you drive a Tesla, no doubt. But you're not saving the planet. It's an absolute joke. All right. Anything else? All right. Until next time, guys, don't grow weary. Doing good. I look forward to seeing you on radio Monday evening. But that's it. Until next time, don't grow weary. Doing good. God bless every single one of you.